Thank you very much for joining us again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen so you can see my presentation, and I'll introduce myself. I'm Gina Strati with Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, and it is a pleasure to be with you this morning. I apologize, you're the first people I've spoken to this morning. My throat's a little bit scratchy. I'm with Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, and it's a pleasure to be able to share with you some of my thoughts about SMRs and specifically about some of the activities that are taking place in Canada as we try to move the SMR portfolio forward. I'll just, if you'll indulge me, I'll just spend a moment to let you know a little bit about our organization, for those of you who don't know. So Canadian Nuclear Laboratories is Canada's national nuclear laboratory. We have over 50 unique labs and a very, very diverse team of over 3,300 employees. I work with the Science and Technology Organization, and I'm based at the Chalk River Laboratories, and that is about a 2-hour drive outside of the nation's capital, Ottawa, along the Ottawa River, so a very pretty location. I think you saw the picture on my title slide. That is where the bulk of our science and technology and research and development operations take place at the Chalk River Laboratories. And we have a small group at the National Innovation Center for Cybersecurity in the province of New Brunswick. So cybersecurity is a very hot topic, interesting topic these days, and that group is quite active in those activities, as well as in their support for deployment of SMRs in Canada. At CNL, we have 3 main missions: to restore and protect the environment through our environmental remediation group, improving the health of Canadians through research in medical isotopes and diagnostic treatments, and clean energy for today and tomorrow, which of course is the main focus of the work that I'm involved in, and that is all types of clean energy. So we have a hydrogen program that looks at hydrogen production, energy storage, support, of course, for the existing fleet of reactors in Canada and abroad. And my favorite topic are advanced reactors and small reactor portfolio. Small reactors has really been a very vibrant or hot topic in the last 5 to 7 years in Canada, and I'm sure elsewhere. It seems to build momentum and interest annually. And I think that is very interesting to see this conversation around new nuclear. I think the concept of these small reactors, from the micro reactors at 5 to 10 megawatts to the larger on-grid reactors at around 300 megawatts, really, I think, invoke interest in the applications outside of electricity generation that these technologies can afford to us. And I think for those of us who are researchers in the nuclear field, they just stimulate that innovation of what could these new reactors actually accomplish, and how are their designs so much different than conventional reactors. In Canada, that SMR conversation took on a very, I'll call it a pan-Canadian approach to that discussion. So in Canada, we seem to have organically landed on what we call a Team Canada approach to SMRs. This term was coined many years ago, and really, perhaps tongue-in-cheek, perhaps on purpose, really tried to capture the fact that this conversation in Canada around small reactors is a multifaceted conversation. So it isn't only the federal government saying, here's a new technology and we should implement this in our country. It isn't only a researcher saying, hey, I've discovered something new. Let's see how this technology could work for us. It is really multifaceted, different parts of the country, different types of organization, all having conversations that are complementary and that are moving the SMR portfolio forward in Canada. So of course, that type of movement does require some interest from the federal government in terms of setting policy and climate change objectives. In Canada, we're committed to being net zero by 2050 and have acknowledged, as I think I heard in the opening remarks, that this will require all of the clean energy technologies that we have available to us. in order to be able to achieve some of these targets, these very ambitious targets. In Canada, we're blessed with quite a lot of hydroelectric power, which is clean. We have some nuclear in our country, but we still have some coal-fired plants and other maybe not as green technologies that are driving our energy resources. So it's really important to have that view that we have a target that we're trying to achieve, and federal recognition that nuclear can be part of the solution to this climate change challenge. And that is new nuclear in the form of small reactors or advanced reactors. This conversation has extended beyond the nuclear industry. So often I've observed in the past that the nuclear industry talks to each other and we're all aligned, of course, on how important nuclear is. When that conversation exits the nuclear industry and starts to show up in other conversations around the country, I think that's really where you have an interest and a pull for this type of technology. Recently this year, Canada had released a strategy for hydrogen, so a national hydrogen strategy. And as part of developing that hydrogen strategy, there were some focus groups and consultations that they did with various groups across the country, different industries, to really ask how can hydrogen be useful for you and to plan out this national strategy. And I think this is the first time that there was a focus group that included the nuclear industry, where the conversations were around how small modular reactors could enable a hydrogen industry in Canada, and what the nuclear industry would need for that to be successful, and how we could work together to enable hydrogen throughout the country. So I thought that was a very interesting focus group to be part of, and very good to see that that nuclear conversation had extended into other clean energy technologies. We do have a national SMR roadmap in Canada. So that roadmap has been developed and was recently actioned with the release of a Smr Action Plan in December. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. And that sets the path for us for development, demonstration, and deployment of small nuclear in Canada. The provinces in Canada, electricity generation is the jurisdiction of the provincial governments, and the provinces and power utilities have committed to developing and deploying new nuclear in Canada. So that's very exciting as well. These are the groups that would build them, operate the reactors, and it's very heartening to see that they are also interested in new nuclear. CNL has been creating SMR programs, really being conscious of the fact that we are a can-do country. So our nuclear history is steeped in the can-do reactor. And so we have developed research programs that have enabled us to become familiar with different technologies, looking at the SMR technologies that would be a really good fit for Canada in different contexts, and looking at some of the feasibility of SMRs in different applications and some of the economic implications of that. We also have a goal to site a demonstration project at a CNL managed site by 2026, and that is something that is driving some of our work forward. The other aspects of this, so we've talked a little about the federal view and the SMR roadmap, the provincial view, what we at CNL are doing to enable technology. So we are not developing or designing reactors ourselves. We are really looking to enable this technology in the country. The academic sector is also a very important part of this. So we feel it's very important for Canada to understand the different technologies and have that knowledge base within the country. So universities are looking at their programs to see whether they have those universities that have a nuclear program, are they vibrant and modern, and do they cover SMR technology? Students are asking for this information as well. I've had some requests from universities to provide a talk on SMR technology. So the students are asking for more information as part of their education in our universities. Some provinces like Saskatchewan, who are not currently nuclear power generators have expressed an interest in having new nuclear in the future in the form of a small reactor. And they have already started to build these curriculum programs in their universities, looking at what nuclear could mean for them, and how they could support that technology deployment within their province. That's very, very exciting indeed. And another aspect of this, I guess, countrywide conversation is through the nuclear supply chain. In Canada, our supply chain is very strong. They've been working very actively on the refurbishment projects at some of our CANDU plants. And they are asking also, how can they support this industry in Canada? How can they retool where necessary to be able to support the development and deployment of this technology in Canada? And the conversation is involving all of these groups at the same time. And I can't, of course, forget the communities that would be potential host communities for these technologies. So really the developing SMRs as a researcher is very exciting and a lot of fun. But they're really only useful if they're deployed, and if they're deployed in communities that welcome them, that see the value and benefit to having that kind of power generation in their communities. And so this Team Canada approach also includes talking to those communities, answering questions they may have around the technology. So we have heard from some potential small host communities, just questions. They're open. They haven't perhaps decided to go with small nuclear, but they're certainly open to learning about it and understanding how that technology may be beneficial to them and how it may be able to work in conjunction with some of the renewables that they already have, online in their towns. So maybe I'll start with the Pan-Canadian SMR Roadmap. So in 2018, we released an SMR roadmap. So if you're interested in either of these documents, you can find them at smrroadmap.ca or smractionplan.ca. So the SMR roadmap in 2018 was a year-long effort that brought together provinces, territories, power utilities, research organization, and others to really explore what do SMRs look like in Canada. How would we integrate them into our energy mix? What are the economics around SMRs? How can they benefit Canada? And what are some of the technical challenges? So that roadmap contained at the back of the document 50 recommendations for a variety of groups across Canada, governments, academia, research organizations, and so on. And the recommendations really had a broad range, but they were all recommendations that were put in place to move the SMR portfolio forward and to really explore this industry and work towards development and deployment in Canada. This past year in December, we did release our SMR Action Plan. So this is an interesting concept. The Natural Resources Canada went back to people who participated in the roadmap and others who had become part of this conversation around SMR technology in Canada and asked them to contribute to the SMR Action Plan. So any industry that wanted to commit to actions that move the SMR portfolio forward were asked to submit a chapter describing who they were, what they thought of SMRs in Canada, and what actions they were planning to take over the next few years to make this a reality for us. So we so far have 109 chapters, participating organizations as part of this action plan, and I think a total of 450 actions that are being tracked. So if you go to the website, you're able to click on a logo of a company and then read their contribution to the SMR Action Plan. It's really quite interesting. There are some chapters that have been contributed by some of our Indigenous groups and businesses. People like the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories has a chapter, the power utilities. Some provinces that are considering nuclear have also put a chapter in place. So a very diverse group. All committing to some sort of action to move SMRs forward in Canada. And that is sort of captures that Team Canada approach. And I think that there is so much interest in Canada because of the actual market potential. I think that we can really see not just the development of the technology or the the fact that it could help with our climate change objectives. I think there are actual needs and market needs for this technology in Canada. So I've put here three different classifications, I guess, of small reactors that we're looking at. The microreactors for deployment in some of our off-grid communities. So Canada has many communities that are not connected to an electrical grid, either so remote that they rely on diesel generation, which can have some reliability issues. And those are really great options. SMRs are a really great option for some of those communities. They could provide reliable baseload energy and are easily deployed microreactors in an off-grid manner. So we can see a market for that. We see a market for SMRs being used to green some of our resource extraction activities, for example, in some of the mining sites. Those are also often not connected to the grid, and sort of a mid-size SMR would be a good option for greening some of those activities. And of course, there's also an on-grid SMR. So that for us would be in the larger 100 to 300 megawatt reactors. And this would be as we phase out coal-fired generation, perhaps replacing that with nuclear. So that is an option. So three sizes, three likely different technologies are what we are considering in Canada. And so a real market has, I think, stimulated that very natural discussion of whether SMRs could be the right mix as part of our energy plan. I've listed here some time frames to deployment. Please don't hold me to these dates. These are really some of our target dates, but the industry in Canada really thought about how to articulate our messaging around small reactors and have settled on these three streams with slightly different deployment opportunities and deployment timeframes. So there is the on-grid replacement in the mid to late 2020s, on-grid replacement of advanced reactors in the early to mid 2030s. So the advanced reactors would be the molten salt reactors, sodium fast reactor, maybe reactors that rely or support fuel reprocessing as part of their fuel supply, and off-grid microreactors also in the 2020s. So CNL, as I mentioned, has a goal to site an SMR demonstration project by 2026 through an open invitation process. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And so our goals are around the off-grid microreactor. And as I mentioned, the Canadian industry itself is actively supporting SMR development and deployment. We recently had this year a provincial memorandum of understanding signed between the provinces of New Brunswick, Ontario, and Saskatchewan. New Brunswick and Ontario currently have CANDU nuclear reactors and have always worked together on this technology. Saskatchewan is new to the nuclear generation game, although that is the province that provides us with all of our uranium. So the uranium is mined in Saskatchewan, perhaps not all, but most of it. And they are interested now in having a small modular reactor as part of their energy mix moving forward. So those three provinces have committed to work on the development and deployment of small nuclear in their provinces. And I think that's a really powerful message that in addition to what the federal government is putting in place and actioning and supporting with policy and regulation, the provinces are also getting together to work on deployment of this technology. Several years ago, New Brunswick Power announced that they were supporting Moltex and ARC, so a molten salt and a sodium fast reactor, part of the advanced reactor collection of reactors. And they have created a research initiative in the province of New Brunswick that involves their supply chain and the universities, really working to understand those two technologies, support their development, and support the deployment within their province. So we have been working with the province of New Brunswick and the University of New Brunswick also in the molten salt research area. And so it's a very interesting new technology and a very good fit for what they need. This past year, I think just a couple of months ago, Ontario Power Generation announced that they were supporting, had down selected to 3 technologies that they were looking at and supporting terrestrial energy, GE Hitachi, and X Energy. So they will be looking at how those technologies develop with the goal of potentially down selecting to 1 for an on-grid replacement. So that would be that stream 1 that I showed on the previous slide. And Bruce Power, also around the same time frame as OPG, announced that it's going to pursue looking at some of the applications of the Westinghouse eVinci reactor. And the eVinci reactor is, of course, a microreactor. So how those applications and that reactor might fit their business needs. And of course, at the bottom, I'm talking again about the Chalk River project. Global First Power has a project at Chalk River Laboratories. It is the first SMR project in Canada to submit a license application. So they have submitted a license to prepare site at the Chalk River Laboratories, which is where I work. And we're very excited to see a project, an SMR project, moving forward in Canada. So I'm sure that some of you, if you've been at conferences where Canada has presented or CNL has presented, you've likely seen our invitation process, but I thought it was perhaps worthwhile, since this answers some of the, the facet around demonstration projects. Several years ago in 2018, we launched an invitation process where we said, we think we have something to offer these developers as they move forward with their technology to make them ready and deployable in Canada. So we offer at the CNL managed sites, perhaps a demonstration site where people could bring their project, build it, and demonstrate that their technology worked as expected, demonstrate that that these new reactors are licensable in Canada, and also demonstrate that they can be manufactured perhaps in a modular fashion and brought to site and assembled in a very short period of time, proving that the time scale for construction of small nuclear could be much shorter than a conventional plant. So this 4-stage invitation process was very successful. We've had several applicants. You can see U-Battery, Terrestrial Energy, and StarCore have passed our stage 1 pre-qualification, and Global First Power is currently in stage 3, which is negotiation of land arrangement. And what that means is, where would we site their project? And what do some of those legal agreements look like when you're citing a third-party project on our site? So Global First Power is jointly owned by OPG and USNC. It is a microreactor. They submitted their license to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission to prepare a site at the Chalk River Laboratories, this in 2019. There has been a CNSC record of decision related to the definition of their environmental assessment scope, and they have started their environmental impact statement, which is required before they're able to be granted their license to prepare site. And they've completed some of the geophysical site evaluations for deployment at Chalk River. So our sites are very well characterized. We have a lot of information on the sites where we think we can site a demonstration reactor, archaeological studies, water flow studies, and so on and so forth. So we have well characterized sites, and those are the ones that we're offering initially for a demonstration project. I'd also like to point out that we have multiple sites. And so this isn't really, it's not a competitive program. We really think we have capacity for more than one demonstration project at CNL. And so Global First just happens to be the first one in stage 3, but we can certainly accommodate others. So I don't want you to think that those in stage 1 are no longer part of this. Global First Power is just a little bit ahead of the game. This is a demonstration timeline. So again, I don't want you to hold me to these dates. These are our target dates at CNL. You can see where we start with the launching of the CNL invitation process in 2018, the first license application in Canada with the Global First Power project at Chalk River in 2019, all the way through to where we expect to have first power in 2026, and the ability for energy offtakes in 27, 28. So really, I do want to make it clear that this is Global First Power's project, not CNL's project. And so how they decide to work with the energy offtakes and what they want to do with that really falls in their area of decision making. And we are here to help enable whatever they would like to demonstrate. So the energy offtake portion of a demonstration project at Chalk River is really interesting, and it stimulated a lot of discussion on site of what that could look like. And so I did want to mention to you a future project that we have. So we're looking to put in place a clean energy development, innovation, and research park. And this clean energy park is envisioned as a demonstration of nuclear cogeneration centered around one of these demonstration SMR projects. We want to be able to really show that SMRs can work in collaboration with renewables, can work with production of hydrogen perhaps, energy storage, maybe district heating, anything, any application that you may want to have perhaps in your community, we could demonstrate it in this demonstration park. Also, as we look at clean energy technologies, there will be new and innovative technologies coming on the market, and perhaps this demonstration platform would enable us to test some of those as well. So this is a very exciting future project at CNL, and I think for deployment in Canada, it would allow some of the interested communities or organizations who may want to have nuclear in their area to really be able to come and see that some of the claims are true. They could see the reactor, they could see and get data from how it interacts in these different areas. So it could be a very powerful way to really show that this technology could work for them. And of course, as part of the S&T organization, I would be remiss without talking a little bit about research and development. So as I said before, we are a can-do focused country, although CNL does have a history of supporting development many years ago in different technologies and different smaller reactor technologies, as a matter of fact. But as we looked at how to de-risk the development and deployment of small nuclear in Canada, we really organized our research program in these 5 different areas, from technology development to how we can provide science and data to support policies, decision-making, and regulation. And that's really important for our federal research program. And these areas are certainly not a surprise to anyone in the audience. What was quite difficult in the beginning was developing a research program with uncertainty as to which new technologies would find their way into Canada. Would it be a molten salt? Which molten salt? Would it be, high temperature gas reactor? What would that look like? And how do you put together a cost-effective research program with that uncertainty? So the first 5 years of our program certainly focused on cross-cutting research, technology neutral research, a lot on deployment, maybe sensor networks and structural questions that maybe all of the reactor types had in common. And the last slide that I'll talk about today is our Canadian Nuclear Research Initiative. So this is a CNL initiative where we really wanted to help the technology developers move forward in developing and answering questions that they may have or challenges they were facing as they developed and moved their technology forward. So this is a cost-sharing program between us and the SMR developers, where we look at a common area of interest for both of us, pool our resources, and then are able to answer some questions. And I've listed there some of the areas that we're looking at, from tritium management to maybe just feasibility studies of, what would it look like for my reactor to be deployed in conjunction with a mining site? What would that look like? What are the economics around that? So we've done a variety of different studies. This is we've just launched our 2nd year of this program, and it's very popular with the SMR developers in Canada. And we're hoping that it continues to be a cornerstone of some of the enabling research that we can do as we do our part to help these SMR developers move forward. And that's really all I had for you this morning or today. I think hopefully I haven't spoken for too long. out of the corner of my eye, I was able to see that the sun has actually come up. It's very early in the morning here, so I feel like I've been speaking for a very long time. Since when I started, it was dark out. And I really thank you for giving me a little bit of time to share the Canadian story with you, and our story of a multifaceted Team Canada approach to deployment of reactors in our country. Thank you.